My brothers and sisters, Sister Catherine is a sister of the Franciscan Sister of the Eucharist. They're a more modern order of in the church. There's a house of them in Meriden, and one of their charisms is health care. And Sister Catherine was driving on her way to one of her home care visits, wearing her habit, and she runs out of gasoline in the car. So she figures, well, no problem, just past the gas station a couple blocks back. I'll just go and see if I can get a little gallon of gas to put in my car. So she goes to the gas station, and the gasoline attendant says, Sister, I'd be happy to help you, but somebody else just asked for the gas, for gas in their car as well, so the gallon that we give out isn't here right now. It'll come back in a little while if you could just wait for it. And so she says, okay. And it's taken a little time, so she figures, well, I'm going to try to do something a little different. So she walks back to the car, and she rummages through the back in her trunk, and she discovers one of these little hats, these little plastic hats that you can put on a commode to collect urine samples. And so she says, oh, this will do. So she takes it and she goes back to the gas station. She fills it up, the hat up with the gasoline, and then she's going back as quickly and as carefully as she can with the hat to her car. She unscrews the gas tank, and she starts to pour the gasoline from the hat, wearing her habit, into the car. While she is doing this, two people in a car pass by on the road, and they see this. And one says to the other, now that's what I call faith. My brothers and sisters, what do we call faith? In today's gospel, the apostles ask Jesus, increase our faith. It's a cry that we often have about our own faith. Habakkuk speaks for the people in the first reading experiencing violence and ruin in his own day. And he wonders why God does not intervene. How long, Habakkuk says. It's a way of saying, increase our faith. Think about the faith-challenging trials that we may be experiencing in our own lives, where we might cry out, increase our faith. Those challenges could be with relationships. Those challenges could be with searching for a job. Those challenges could be dealing with some kind of illness in ourselves or in someone that we love. And on a bigger scale, think of all the faith-testing things that exist in the world, like the war in Ukraine that still grinds on, or the devastating floods in Puerto Rico and Pakistan and Alaska, the victims of Fiona and Ian in the Caribbean, the United States, and even in Canada. Refugees on the borders of many different countries crying out for help around the world. Increase our faith. The apostles say increase our faith because Jesus was just challenging them. Jesus was just telling them how they ought to believe, He was saying, telling them not to lead others into sin by setting a good example. He was asking about giving correction to our brothers and sisters, not an easy thing to do, and to be constantly willing to forgive a repentant brother and sister. These demands of living the life of a disciple can certainly say, increase our faith. Even in our parish life, with the disclosures of scandals in recent past, the demands of restructuring to meet the needs of our present time, and in a way that can also enable us to blossom in the future. these kinds of challenges are faced from the pew all the way up to the chancery. And all of us may cry together, "Increase our faith." But what is it that we call faith, and why does it need to be increased? It seems that in Jesus' mind, it's not the quantity of faith that's important, but that we have faith. Jesus says even the faith the size of a mustard seed would be enough to unearth a deeply rooted mulberry tree and have it planted in the sea. So it's not the amount of faith that we have, but that we have faith in the first place. Faith, it seems, doesn't have to increase in quantity, but just exist and have that existence grow more and more in our lives. Having faith means knowing that we belong to God and that God belongs to us. Having faith is a response to what God has already done for us, usually in the form of a healing or knowing that we are forgiven in a very profound way. And sometimes faith just grows from when we are young and just continues to grow and grow in our lives without too much drama. But it's that knowing that we belong to God and God belongs to us, that it's sort of a response of knowing that God is in our lives. It's kind of like a blush. You know, somebody sees you and compliments you in a way that you didn't expect, and you realize, oh yeah, you recognize that in yourself because of this compliment, and you kind of, gosh, it's faith is a blush in a sense. It's a response to the goodness of God that we come to know in our lives. And it colors everything we do. Faith is what we believe. Faith is the story of a people, a story that we continue to live out. Faith is a word that we hear. Faith is our own life's work. Faith is the bond we share with other people and with God. Faith is what we celebrate here at Math. Faith is how we live. Faith really makes all the difference in the life of the disciple. And if we see all of the challenges to our faith, whether it be a challenge of trying to live differently or a challenge in trying to deal with all of the darkness and uncertainty in the world, maybe where we see that our faith is being tested, perhaps that it is God looking at us through these challenges, and that we feel that response, that blush to God. Oftentimes, faith sees best in the dark. And so, as with Habakkuk, knowing and seeing all of the violence in his day, and knowing us that we, in all of our challenges in the faith, we may see that these are just hardships of the gospel, and that we recognize the spirit, which is not of cowardice, that God has given to us in our lives. For with faith, we can see the vision of God unfolding in all of the challenges, that the vision of God still has its time, and that it's still pressing on to its fulfillment, that it isn't finished yet, and that we have a role to play. And if it delays, well, we certainly can wait for it, because faith tells us it will surely come. Faith is what God has given to us as we come to know God more and more in God's love, in God's mercy, in God's forgiveness. Because in our it is through our faith that Habakkuk says that we shall live. Live in God, live for others. Live in a way that shows God in the world in all of its challenging times.